Hello everyone, I'm Freaky and welcome to the video. Let's talk about race swapping. Yeah, I know. It's already been done by many YouTubers and it would be a waste of time for me to make a video on race swapping and saying why it's good or bad, blah blah blah. And guys, trust me, I have been there. Loads of people have done it. And no, this isn't a cash grab for me. And I'm not making this video because, I want to get into the trend, blah blah blah. That's not my style. My style of YouTubing is doing my own thing and not following trends because it's the latest thing to talk about. Trust me, I don't do that stuff. I only do things that interest me, not because it's the hot topic of the week. So I've made it clear that I'm not trying to make a video because everybody else is making one about this topic. I genuinely want to talk about this subject because I want to put my 2 cents on the subject. So without further ado, let's go. And to start this video off, I'm just going to say it. Race swapping is wrong, 100%. I am completely against a character from fiction and a person from history being race swapped for media. Like that old thing with Cleopatra. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that because everybody knows about that subject and we all know that Cleopatra wasn't black. She was Macedonian. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about that subject. I'm going to talk about something completely different. Now, I am going to talk about race swapping, but I'm also going to talk about something else that revolves around race swapping, and that thing is race replacement. Now, some of you are probably thinking, what the hell is race replacement? Well, I'll get to that later, but the first thing I want to talk about is 2 characters. One, Miles Morales from Spider-Man, and John Stewart, the Green Lantern from Justice League. Now, I just want to make one thing clear, okay? I haven't seen the Spider-Verse movies, and I don't plan to. And the reason why I'm not going to do that is because I knew for a fact that this was part of the woke agenda. They swapped out Peter Parker for Miles Morales. And I know enough about the movie that, Peter Parker is dead in another universe. And now it's up to this kid named Miles Morales to take up the mantle and become the new Spider-Man. And this is exactly it. This is what I mean by race replacement. Now, when it comes to race swapping, all they do is just change the race of the person and give them the exact same backstory, powers, and so on, just like the original character. It's like, for example, they changed Batman's race from white to black, and he was exactly like Batman from the old media, but instead white, he is black. And that's basically it. That's what race swapping is. But when it comes to race replacement, it's when, for example, Peter Parker. Now, when you think of Peter Parker, you instantly think Spider-Man, and he was an established character. We know Peter Parker. We know his adventures, his enemies, his family, his love interests, how he got the spider powers. Peter Parker is the original Spider-Man, like Bruce Wayne is the original Batman. So you guys get what I'm saying. But because it's the current thing, they decided to race replace Peter Parker with Miles Morales. And that's exactly it. This is what race replacement is. Replacing the original character with another race. And he has the same powers as the original. And you know what? That really bugs me when it comes to Miles Morales. I mean, he so happens to get the same powers as Peter Parker by accident. And when it comes to Peter Parker, he is actually dead within the Spider-Verse. And now it's Miles Morales' turn to take up the mantle of Spider-Man because Peter Parker is dead until he comes back into the comics. Yeah, apparently Peter Parker comes back to life and now he is working alongside Miles. So now there are 2 Spider-Men working in New York. And listen, I know this is another dimension and not the original Spider-Man dimension because there are loads of dimensions with Spider-Man in it. And the mantle of Spider-Man is played by loads of people. An anime girl, a cartoon pig, Spider-Gwen, and so on. And because of this, that, there are loads of versions of Spider-Man in different dimensions. And this gives the creators of this movie an excuse to say, oh no, this isn't Peter Parker, this is another dimension. Somebody else is taking up the mantle of Spider-Man. I mean, look at all these different versions of Spider-Man. And you know what? This was a dirty trick for these writers to do this. Because we all know why they replaced Peter Parker with Miles Morales. Is because they want to diversify characters. They want to replace white characters with minorities, specifically black people. But I'll get back to this later. I just want to carry on with Miles Morales. And you know what? Thanks to this movie that he was in, I know for a fact that he's going to be the new Spider-Man. They're going to try and make him the go-to Spider-Man that everybody knows because of this woke agenda. But the thing is, he isn't Spider-Man. He isn't the OG. He isn't the original. But hey, that's a completely different thing altogether. I'll talk about that later. And I know for a fact I'm going to get some SJWs out there who's going to say, oh, you just don't like Miles because he's black. You're a racist. Dude, shut the hell up. Shut up and let me finish. Now, let's take a look at John Stewart from Justice League. Now, when it came to John Stewart from Justice League, John Stewart was my first introduction to the Green Lanterns. I mean, I knew Batman, I knew Superman, I kind of sort of knew who the Flash was. The Justice League from the 2000s was my introduction to the Justice League, and I got to know who Wonder Woman was, The Flash, John Jones, Hawkgirl, and of course the Green Lantern, John Jones. And yeah, I know all about Batman and Superman, and when it came to these guys was my Justice League. I grew up with them. They were my heroes. And when it came to John Stewart, he was my introduction to the Green Lanterns. And I've seen his stories, I've seen his heartbreaks, I've seen many stories with John Stewart. And you know what? I love John Stewart. No homo. And I'm not gonna lie, when it came to the actual powers of the Green Lanterns, I thought the Green Lantern's powers was kinda lame, simply because their powers come from a ring, and if somebody was to take it off, they would be rendered powerless. But at the same time, I thought the power of the ring was neat, so it edges between neat and lame, simply because their power comes from a freaking ring. But you know what? Over the years, I have come to appreciate the Green Lanterns because of their backstory and mythology, and all the different Lantern Corps that there are. But again, I do love John Stewart as a character. His backstory, his adventures, his heartbreaks, his stories, they're all great in the Justice League series. Again, this is all I knew when it came to the Green Lanterns. John Stewart was the only human Green Lantern that I knew about. That was until years later that I found out about Al Jordan, who was the first Green Lantern. Now originally I think there was another Justice League and it didn't have John Stewart in it, and I think it was Al Jordan. I'm not sure, I haven't seen that version of the Justice League. Anyways, the first time when I first saw Al Jordan in a story was in the Injustice series, where he became a Yellow Lantern. So yeah, Injustice was my introduction to Al Jordan, and after a while I find out that Al Jordan was the second and most famous Green Lantern, and Al Jordan is white. And when I saw Injustice, I saw John Stewart, Guy Gardner and Al Jordan in that comic, and I was like, what the heck's going on here? And also, I didn't even know about Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner was introduced to me in Injustice, and so I thought to myself, hold on, I thought John Stewart was from another dimension or something, because when it comes to DC, I learned that DC has many Earths, or different dimensions, because sometimes I would see the Justice League with different sorts of characters, like Cyborg or John Jones or Aquaman. There's Hawkgirl, you know, as one of the main founders. Like sometimes they would replace Hawkgirl with Cyborg, or they would replace John Jones with Shazam. And that's what I mean. There are loads of different versions of the Justice League. In other dimensions, the Justice League would have different founding members. Like instead of having Hawkgirl, they could have Aquaman on the team, or instead of John Jones, they could have Shazam. You guys basically know what I'm talking about, and that's what I assumed when it came to John Stewart and Al Jordan, because when I saw Al Jordan in the Justice League, I just assumed that he was an alternative version of John Stewart. Well, I mean, he was in the Injustice Unlimited series, but when I saw Injustice, I saw 3 human Green Lanterns: Guy Gardner, Al Jordan and John Stewart. Now I assumed Al Jordan was in another dimension where he was part of the Justice League. I mean, he is, but the thing is, this is not 100% true. John Stewart wasn't a race replace for Al Jordan, but instead they both lived in the same universe as each other. John Stewart isn't a race replace because he was an already established character that was made in the 70s. John Stewart wasn't created for the Justice League in the early 2000s as a race replacement, but again, he was an already established character. He lived in the same universe as Al Jordan. In fact, I think it was Al Jordan who chose John Stewart to be a Green Lantern for either a replacement or backup or something. I think he was supposed to be Al Jordan's backup or partner. Like, let's just say for example that somewhere in the universe there was trouble brewing, then either John or Al can go into space and deal with this problem, and the other one can stay on Earth and protect it. And you know what? I can totally get that. John Stewart wasn't a creation of the woke era because, oh, they can replace Al Jordan. John Stewart was an already established character that was supposed to work alongside Al Jordan. And you know what? I can believe that. Like, in the 2000s Justice League, I can believe that Al Jordan was in space somewhere, while John Stewart was with the Justice League. I can totally get behind that. And you know what the best part about being a Green Lantern is? Anybody can be a Green Lantern. You can be any race, you can be any alien. Heck, if Superman wanted to, he could have a Green Lantern ring. And that's exactly the point. Anybody can be a Green Lantern and be from the same dimension as them. And you know what? It makes sense when it comes to the Green Lanterns. Because again, anybody can be a Green Lantern. And you know what? Even though Al Jordan is supposed to be the most famous and well-known Green Lantern, but to me, it wouldn't be the Justice League without John Stewart. Because again, I grew up with John Stewart. He was my Green Lantern when I was growing up. Again, I know that Al Jordan was the Green Lantern that recruited John Stewart, and Al Jordan is the most famous Green Lantern. But you know what? I just can't see a Justice League without John Stewart. Not because he's black, but because I grew up with him. It just wouldn't be complete without John Stewart. And also, Jon Stewart in a Green Lantern suit looks way cooler than Al Jordan. To me, Al Jordan kind of looks like a dork with his Green Lantern suit and mask. Come on, he really does look like a dork. But when it comes to Jon and his Green Lantern suit, he looks like a freaking badass. He looks much cooler than Al Jordan. Well, that's my personal opinion anyways. So you know what? I don't actually mind Jon Stewart, because again, he was an already established character. He was chosen by Al Jordan in an era that wasn't woke, and his stories are fan-freaking-tastic. And Al Jordan is in space somewhere, but he's also in the same dimension as Jon Stewart. And anybody can be a Green Lantern. And you know what? That makes sense. But when it comes to Miles Morales and Peter Parker, we all know that this was an ass-pull. I mean, come on, you guys expect me to believe that during the time of the SJW Woke-Age, where they were starting to race swap characters and virtue signal, they decided to have a character like Miles Morales that is a black kid, who was created in 2011. I mean, that's just 5 years off before the SJW Woke-Age came along in 2016. Now, I can understand if Miles was from another dimension, because there are like infinite possibilities of dimensions, like infinite on infinite possibilities of what a Spider-Man can look like, have different personalities, they could have stronger powers, weaker powers. I mean, look at Penny Parker and Peter Parker and Nor and Gwen. I mean, come on, you guys basically got the general idea. And you know what? I wouldn't mind that, oh, he's from another dimension where he is Spider-Man, just like all the other Spider-Men. Again, like Penny and Parker and Nor and so on. I wouldn't have minded that. But there's just one teeny wee little problem when it comes to Miles. He comes from the same universe as the original Peter Parker. And after all this stuff that I've told you about Miles, that his character came around roughly around near the beginning of the woke era, he comes from the same dimension as Peter Parker, and two of the biggest problems of all is, number one, he has the exact same powers as Peter, at the very least I think so, and two, Miles' powers came from a spider by complete accident. The same way Peter Parker got his spider powers. This little radioactive spider just came along and just bit him. And that's how he got his spider powers. Exactly like Peter Parker. I mean, yeah, it's a different location. So hold on, let me get this straight. Miles Morales, that comes from the same dimension as Peter Parker, that loses an uncle who was a villain and got along with him, and I think he loses his father in the game. He was created around near enough the SJW Woke era. They made a movie of Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse that was in the Woke era, and you're telling me that this random spider just so happens to bite him and just get away, and now he has the same sort of powers as Peter. I mean, come on, really? I mean, when it comes to Jon Stewart and Al Jordan and the Green Lanterns, anybody could be a Green Lantern. Jon was his own person. He had his own background, and yeah, sure, both Al and Jon has the same sort of powers, depending on their willpower. But that makes sense because that power came from the same power source, which was the Lantern Core. But when it came to Peter Parker, his powers was given to him by accident because of a radioactive spider. He wasn't chosen, he didn't ask for the powers, he wasn't recruited, there was no organization that was going all over the world saying, okay, this person can be a Spider-Man, or oh, this person can be a Spider-Man, or oh, this person can be a Spider-Man. And again, Miles Morales wasn't from a different dimension like Spider-Gwen or Peter Parker, and he got spider powers. I could have accepted that Miles came from a different dimension, and he was his own Spider-Man in that dimension where there was no Peter Parker. You guys see what I mean now? Miles was a race replacement. I mean, come on, in the movie, Peter Parker actually dies, and now it's up to Miles Morales to take up the mantle as Spider-Man. So yeah, Peter wasn't race swapped, he was race replaced, until Miles' uncle and Peter Parker himself came back to life. And now there are two Spider-Men. And you know what? It's a freaking tragedy when it comes to Miles. Because number one, the Spider-Verse came out during the woke era, where white people was being replaced by minorities. Number two, Miles and Peter Parker have parallels to each other. Number one, he was bitten by a radioactive spider that just so happens to come along. Number two, he has the same powers as Spider-Man with a few more other powers, but hey, you have to be better than the original. Number three, he loses an uncle that so happens to be a villain. So I'm guessing his uncle is the Uncle Ben. I mean, come on, Miles loses an uncle the same as Peter Parker? Come on, they have so many similarities, especially with the spider that gave him his powers. Now the thing is, I didn't like the fact that a spider gave Miles his powers. I mean, come on, how many freaking spiders out there that are radioactive? You would have thought we would have had more than just two Spider-Men. Like, what if there was a lab accident, or a lab had loads of radioactive spiders, and then something went wrong, and loads of them escaped? And it could also be explained that these spiders will attack anybody, and these would be the same sort of spiders that gave Peter his spider powers. And not only that, not only would they give Miles his spider powers, but what about other people too? You could have like a Spider-Man that is a bad guy. You could have a Spider-Man that's between the line of dark and light. I mean, come on, that'd be cool. But you're telling me that this one spider so happens to come along and just bite Miles out of millions upon millions of people? Or what if Miles had a rare blood type and Miles needed a blood transfusion and Peter had this rare blood type and Peter decided to give Miles his blood, and then after that Miles gained Peter's powers? I could totally believe that, instead of having another radioactive spider bite Miles. And come on, instead of losing an uncle, you could have other things going on in his life and think, you know what, I'm going to use his powers for the greater good. You know what, I could totally get behind that, instead of having parallels between Peter and himself. I mean, come on, we all know that Miles Morales was a virtue signal, and that is the tragedy of Miles. Between Miles Morales and John Stewart, you know which one is the virtue signal, and the other one came in naturally, and why it made sense for John Stewart to be a Green Lantern. He wasn't given the same backstory, he wasn't given any parallels between Al Jordan and himself. So yeah, you guys know what I'm trying to say. Now, let's talk about other characters. Now, to some of you who thinks that, oh, I just hate Miles Morales because he's black. Again, that's not true, because there's actually another character that was race swapped, but I actually do like. And that character is from Young Justice, which by the way, I don't recommend you guys go and watch it because Young Justice is woke. I really don't recommend it. But there's this character called Aqualad, called Jackson Hyde, and I've ever only seen clips on YouTube with this character, and the first time I saw him is when he betrayed the team. And the thing is, I've never actually watched Young Justice until I saw Jackson Hyde in this one episode I saw on YouTube, and apparently he betrays the team and they fight him. And you know what, I'm a sucker for betrayal stories, so I decided to follow the Aqualad storyline. And you know what, from the clips I've seen to what I've read up about Aqualad, his outbreak with a female character, mourning her death from going undercover and fooling the team, his brain being blasted by Miss Martian, him being hunted by the team, being careful around the other villains, his leadership skills, the guilt that Miss Martian had for blasting him, the confrontation that he has with his father, which is Black Manta by the way, and his freaking leadership skills. And I'm telling you guys, for all the stuff that he went through with his story, he deserves to be the freaking leader of the team, and he leaves a freaking presence. Just by looking at him, you know he's competent, and to what he went through in his story, I absolutely freaking love him. But I didn't actually see the whole thing of his journey. Again, I only saw clips of the series with only Jackson Hyde, aka Aqualad. But during the time when I was watching Jackson Hyde, something didn't feel right, like something was amiss, but I just brushed it off. And also, I didn't watch the beginning of Young Justice, and I didn't watch every single clip of Aqualad. And sometime later, what's this series called? DC Superhero Girls. And you know what? That series was really good. Anyways, I got to know the characters within the series, but there was one character that I noticed, and that character was Garth, and Garth was Aqualad. I mean, it took me a while to put two and two together to think, oh crap, that's Aqualad. And I also thought, wait a minute, in Young Justice he's black, but in DC Superhero Girls he's white? And then, sometime later after that, I saw a clip from the series Teen Titans, the series that I grew up with, and it was the episode where they went into the sea and met Aqualad, aka Garth. And you know what? I completely forgot about this episode. I even forgot that Goth existed. But hey, it's been years since I watched Teen Titans. So I was thinking to myself, hold on, what's going on here? Why are these two Garths white and this Aqualad from Young Justice is black? And so I went to go and do some research, looking up Aqualad. And apparently, Jackson Hyde and Garth are both Aqualad. Jackson Hyde from Young Justice is another incarnation of Aqualad. But that's not the only thing. Garth actually exists in Young Justice, and instead of taking up the mantle of Aqualad, he declined the offer, and Jackson Hyde to take up the title of Aqualad. So Young Justice has the whole Peter Parker thing going on again. Garth in Young Justice was race replaced. They both live in the same universe, but Garth didn't take up the mantle of Aqualad, but instead it was given to Jackson Hyde. And Jackson Hyde was created in the year 2010, and the original Aqualad was created in 1960. So again, we got ourselves another race replacement here. But you know what, saying that, I do like Jackson Hyde. I thought his story in Young Justice was freaking awesome. In fact, he's became one of my favourite characters, Jackson Hyde. But like Miles and Peter, I'm against race replacements, like with Goth and Jackson. And considering that Young Justice is woke, so really, the woke SJW agenda didn't start in the year 2006, but it might have started in the year 2010, maybe even further than that. Jackson Hyde was created in 2010, and Miles was created in the year 2011. So yeah, that's something to think about. Let's have a look at another one. There was also Nick Fury, and when it comes to Nick Fury was originally white, and later on he was redesigned with the likeness of Samuel L. Jackson, and we first saw him in Iron Man in the year 2008. I'm starting to see a trend here. 2008, 2010, 2011. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson wasn't race replaced, but he was race swapped. And some people have actually said, oh, the white Nick Fury is the father of the black Nick Fury. I'm not really sure how true that is, but if that is the case, then that would mean that Nick Fury was actually race replaced. I mean, come on, Nick Fury Sr., Nick Fury Jr.? Seems pretty damn suspicious if you ask me. Anyways, when it comes to race swapping, I am totally 100% against it. Unless it was a character from another dimension. Like, there's a dimension where a black Superman lives. And you know what? I don't actually mind that because, again, it's in another dimension. Something like that is okay. But again, you cannot replace the original. I mean, look at Scooby-Doo. There has been loads of incarnations of Scooby-Doo. Loads of them. And then when Velma came along, Jesus Christ, we all know this was just to spite the Scooby-Doo fans and make it woke propaganda. Now, I know there's going to be some people out there who's going to say, oh, but freaky, in the past, white people race swapped characters too. Yeah, I know. This happened back in the day when either nobody cared or they didn't have the casting. And there's been loads and loads of whitewashing and race swapping when it comes to characters being replaced with white people or white characters. Like, remember the live action Death Note? Or remember Dragon Ball Evolution? That was just wrong. Goku isn't white, he's a freaking Saiyan. So let's see if we can try and find some Saiyans. Anyways, there's something I want to bring up, and it has something to do with Captain America and the Falcon. Now, when it comes to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I haven't actually seen the miniseries, but there is one part of the series that I did watch and heard a lot of people talk about, and that part was when the Falcon was given the title of Captain America. And I've been hearing loads of people saying that, oh, why is the Falcon now Captain America? He shouldn't be Captain America, he shouldn't be Captain America. And you know what, to be honest, I actually don't mind if the Falcon does become Captain America. Okay, hear me out. Let me ask you guys something. What does Captain America represent? Captain America represents truth, justice, and the American way. He represents patriotism. He represents freedom. Captain America represents American values. He's heroic, brave, selfless. He represents every single good thing about America. And I'm British, and even I know the stuff about Captain America. But the thing is, Captain America is an ideal. Captain America represents the good values that comes from America. And anybody can be Captain America. And this is where Sam Wilson comes in from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And when it comes to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the title of Captain America was handed over to him. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. Nobody should have a problem with that because Sam Wilson is an American, and as long as he shares the same values of what Captain America represents, then he is fit to have the title of Captain America. Like, let me give you guys an example of something. When it comes to the UK, it isn't people who comes from England or Wales or Scotland or Ireland, and you don't have to be white. If you genuinely love the culture, the people, and the country, and what that country represents, and you want to protect it, and you say it proud that, oh, I'm British and I say it with pride. I mean, look at me, I'm Romani Gypsy, and my ethnicity isn't English or Welsh or Scottish or Irish. It's Romani Gypsy, but I say it with pride when I say I'm British. I'm British and I say that with pride. It's the same with Sam Wilson. It doesn't matter if he's black and he's an already established character, because anybody can be Captain America as long as you follow the values of America. Truth, justice, freedom, and the American way. And if you want to protect its people, its culture, the country, and you shout out with pride saying that, oh, I'm an American and I'm proud of it, and I take the good stuff with the bad stuff. So Captain America isn't just a person. Captain America is an ideal that anybody can be. An American-loving, patriotic hero that loves his freedom, loves his country, loves his people, loves his culture, and would do anything to protect it. And yes, of course, you can never ever replace the original. It's like when somebody wants to replace Batman, and you know what, you cannot replace Batman. But when it comes to Captain America, one day he'll have to retire, and he'll have to pass down the torch, because Captain America shouldn't be buried with Steve Rogers. Captain America should live on within other people, somebody who is worthy of carrying the title of Captain America. And if Sam Wilson can fill the shoes of the captain, then I say go for it. But the problem is, Sam Wilson also suffers the same fate as Aqualad or Jackson Hyde and Miles Morales. They were all put there just for a virtue signal, and that's the tragedy with these characters. They were race swapped or they were race replaced just for the sake of virtue signaling. But you know what? If Miles came from a different dimension where there was no Peter Parker, or Peter gave his powers to Miles Morales, or Peter gave some of his blood to Miles because he needed a blood transfusion or something, then that would have been much better than having some random spider come along and just bite Miles. Now, there are a few things that I want to say about Miles, but there's a YouTuber called Just Some Guy who talks about Miles on his channel. So I'll leave a link in the description box below to those videos. In fact, if you guys see any videos on why Miles Morales isn't Spider-Man, please go and watch them. And when it comes to Jackson Hyde, even though he was a race replacement, I really do like him. And you know what? That is a tragedy, because that story should have gone to Garth, the original Aqualad. And when it comes to Sam Wilson, he was a virtue signal. And when it comes to Nick Fury, he was a race swap. It's just an absolute tragedy that all these characters came in just because of a virtue signal. And you know what, if this SJW woke nonsense wasn't around, I'm pretty sure loads of people would have accepted these characters if they was introduced in different ways. Not race swapped, but their own characters. It's just a freaking shame. And you know what, that's another thing. When it comes to race swapping or race replacement, why are they always replaced with black people? Now, that's not to say that I hate black people, or are moody because all these characters who have been race swapped is black. That's not my issue. I mean, I've been hearing the left go and saying, oh, we want diversity, we want diversity. Well, if they want diversity, why don't they have different races replace these characters? Like, why not a Asian Nick Fury? Or what about a Native American Aqualad? Or an Aboriginal Captain America? But instead, we're always given black characters when it comes to race swapping or race replacement. I mean, do you guys really think that the left would just shut up and just take it if Cyborg became white, or if Spawn became white, or if Jon Stewart became white, or if Static Shock became white? I'm telling you guys, the left would have a freaking meltdown if that ever happened. But they're okay with race swapping or race replacing white characters. I mean, okay, let me give you guys an example of something. Let's have a look at Black Panther, the most beloved black character in any comic book. Yeah, I know some people are thinking, oh dude, don't go there, don't go there. No, just hear me out. T'Challa, the Black Panther and Wakanda, is beloved and celebrated because he's a black superhero, and Wakanda is a place that everybody dreams of. I mean, heck, there has been people who has been searching saying, oh, is Wakanda real? That's how much people want to believe that Wakanda is real. And people have been searching this on Google saying, oh, is Wakanda real? And there seems to be loads of people, and I assume most of these people who has been searching this are black. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be black people who actually idolizes Black Panther, thinking he's cool and everything. And that's not to say that other races doesn't like Black Panther. I mean, you can be white or Asian or whatever and like Black Panther for his powers and him as a character. And if you're a fan of Black Panther, then let me ask you this. You know Miles Morales and Peter? Anybody can like Peter Parker. It isn't just white people who likes Peter Parker. Every race likes Peter Parker because he's Spider-Man. You can idolize Spider-Man. You can see yourself as Spider-Man. But when you get Miles Morales come in and you have people say, yeah, he's the new Spider-Man. I mean, do you guys really think that Miles Morales would just replace Spider-Man? Now some people will say, oh, he's not replacing Spider-Man, he's his own character. But the thing is, what does Miles bring to the table? Like, who's his villains? Why does his backstory correlate with Peter's? Why does he have the same powers as Peter? What exactly is the point? Okay, let me give you guys another example. Now, I've been hearing a lot of people say, oh, we want some representation. Kids from other races should have heroes that look like them. Like, yeah, there should be a black Spider-Man, so little black boys and girls can relate to Spider-Man. And you know what? That's stupid. I mean, I'm a Romani Gypsy, and you don't see me bitch and complain, saying stuff like, oh, there's not enough representation of Romani Gypsies in hero movies. There's not enough Romani Gypsies to represent us. There isn't any Romani Gypsies for me to relate to. Okay, let me give you guys an example of something. Let's just say, for example, that there were Romani Gypsies who loved the character of T'Challa or Black Panther, and then some jerk-off said, you know what? A lot of Romani Gypsy kids seem to like Black Panther. Let's create a Romani Gypsy Black Panther, and let's call him the White Tiger. He would be exactly like Black Panther in terms of his powers, but he would be much more powerful. And not only that, he would also be the king of gypsies as well. And it would go something like, when the vibranium entered Earth's atmosphere and it was heading to Africa, a piece of that vibranium landed somewhere between the Middle East and Europe. And while the main body of vibranium was in Africa, the other piece, which was much smaller, was on the borders of Europe and the Middle East, somewhere around Romania. And then, years later, when the gypsies was making their way through the Middle East, going into Romania, somewhere around 1370, and the gypsies found the vibranium completely by accident. And the gypsies, over time, find out that this metal, which is vibranium, has a lot of special qualities to it. And so, they decide to hide this metal, aka vibranium, in a cave underground where nobody can find it. And also, they come across a fruit that looked all stripy, like a tiger, and this fruit was near the vibranium. And listen, this is part of Romania where the natives never actually found the vibranium or this tree that sprouted this striped fruit. And now they're not going to have some invisible wall where it's like Wakanda. The gypsies found the vibranium and this tree in a cave, and the tree got its light through holes in the wall where the sun can reach it. And so the gypsies eat this fruit, and it gives them the same powers as Black Panther, but they look completely different. They're all white with black stripes, but they're bigger and more tough. This suit has everything that the Black Panther is known for. It would have all the Black Panther's abilities and powers: speed, durability, agility, stamina, reflexes, healing, strength, regeneration, retractable claws. And after eating the fruit, the intellect of the person who eats this fruit will grow over time. So the longer you live, the more smarter you get. And when it comes to the Romani gypsies, they also messed around with the vibranium, making all sorts of little knickknacks with it, but not like what Wakanda does with its vibranium, but instead the gypsies use magic on their vibranium, you know, gypsy magic, and they created powerful items with the combination of gypsy magic and vibranium. And so over time the gypsy says, we need a king to lead us. And so what the gypsies do is they summon all the gypsies from around the world, and someone says, we need a strong king to lead us. We need a king of the gypsies. We are going to be holding a contest, and the winner of this tournament will become the gypsy king, and will be allowed to eat the striped fruit, and will become the white tiger. And this is what the gypsies did with this fruit. Whenever a king dies, the gypsies would hold a contest or tournament, and they have to fight each other, and the winner of the tournament will be the new gypsy king. He will be known as the strongest gypsy in the world. He will be known as the gypsy king, aka the white tiger. And this was a secret, and no gypsy would give away the information about the vibranium, the fruit. It was their secret and their secret alone, and the secret of the white tiger would be an unknown to the world, and the king of the gypsies would only use his power to defend his people. And every time a king dies, a new tournament is made, and so the gypsies would move across continents, moving from place to place. And there would be gypsies who would stay in this cave to look after the tree and the vibranium. And by the way, they don't call it vibranium, they call it the sacred metal. Anyways, after 700 years to present day, a gypsy from the UK learns of the tournament of who is going to be the new gypsy king. And so he goes to the tournament and he beats everybody. And this person becomes the new white tiger, aka king of the gypsies. And then later on, the white tiger sees Black Panther on TV, and the king says, he has the same sort of suit or powers as me. So the king goes up to Black Panther and he asks him to fight. You know, a nice little spar match. You know, all good fun. But White Tiger is more tougher and bigger and a lot more durable than the Black Panther. And then they're interrupted and they fight together to defeat this big bad. And then they find out about each other's backstory and where they got their powers from. And they both find out that each other has vibranium, and they become good friends. And then the big bad comes along, and the big bad kills Black Panther, and White Tiger defeats the evil that killed Black Panther. And then after the big bad's defeat, Marvel would only concentrate on White Tiger. He's like Black Panther except more stronger and bigger. And he goes, who am I? I'm the king. And you know what? I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want there to be a gypsy Black Panther, or in this case, a white tiger that resembles Black Panther. Black Panther is his own unique character, and for somebody just to come along and have the same powers as him, and they use vibranium otherwise by using magic instead of science, and instead of a panther it would be a tiger, that would be freaking stupid. This would be Miles Morales and Peter Parker all over again, because you cannot replace T'Challa. I mean, I wouldn't be happy if there was a gypsy equivalency to Black Panther, because Black Panther is his own character, and you cannot replace T'Challa. I mean, granted, they would have the same powers, but different backstories. But if they was to do the same with T'Challa like they did with Peter Parker in the Spider-Verse, like they did with Miles Morales, and they did it for White Tiger, then you know for a fact there's going to be people out there who's going to be really angry about this. If they killed off T'Challa or Black Panther, and they just concentrated on White Tiger. And you know what? It shouldn't happen. And it goes for redheads too, because I've been seeing a lot of redhead characters being replaced by black actors or black characters. You cannot replace the originals. And listen, handing down a title like Captain America is okay. Bringing in Miles is okay. Bringing somebody like Jackson Hyde is okay. I mean, they're great characters, but they was made or brought in the woke era. If they was brought in other ways and not during this era because they want a virtue signal, then I doubt anybody would complain about anything. I mean, they shouldn't have race replaced Garth. They shouldn't have race replaced Miles Morales with Peter. The Falcon was okay for Captain America, but again, he was brought in as a virtue signal. There was nothing genuine about the title of Captain America being passed down to Sam Wilson, and giving Miles Morales parallels to Peter is just freaking wrong. Listen, you guys don't need somebody to look like you in order to relate to them. You don't need a black or white or Asian Batman to relate to him. You don't need a black, white or Asian or Hispanic Superman in order to relate to him. You don't need a black, white or Asian or Hispanic Hellspawn in order to relate to him. A hero can come from anywhere. A good person can come from anywhere. It's the same with the villains. You can be white, black, Asian, Hispanic, Muslim, etc., and be the bad guy. And doing this, showing a villain can come from anywhere, just shows that evil can come from anywhere. But only because a bad guy is white, black, Asian, Hispanic, Muslim, etc., doesn't mean he represents you. A bad guy can come from anywhere, and a good guy can come from anywhere too. And that is the most important thing when it comes to a character. You don't need to look like him in order to relate to him. And if a bad guy looks like you, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that bad guys can come from anywhere. Because after all, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. You can look up to people who isn't the same race as you. You can look up to people who isn't the same sex as you. You can look up to people who doesn't come from the same country as you. Yeah, sure, it's nice that a character that looks like you is on the big screen, and he's doing all these cool things and he's doing all these things that make you like him. I mean, look at Dick Grayson. From the year 2015, it was stated that Dick Grayson is actually a Romani. And you know what? I'm actually very conflicted about this because for a long time we've always thought that Dick Grayson or Nightwing was a white guy. And you know what? If they changed Dick Grayson's race to Romani just to virtue signal, then you know what? I demand them to change back his ethnicity to white, because screw virtue signaling. I want absolutely nothing to do with virtue signaling. I mean, if it was known for years and years and years before the woke era came along, say about 20 to 30 years before, then I would have nothing to complain about, because he was already established as a Romani years and years and years ago. But if it was only recent that he was a Romani because they want to virtue signal, then I say make Dick Grayson white. I say screw your virtue signaling. I don't need Dick Grayson to have the same heritage as me for me to relate to him. Besides, I'm a Jason Todd and Damien fan, and Terry McGinnis fan. So yeah, that's all I gotta say about race swapping and race replacement. So what do you guys think? Am I right or am I wrong? Do you think race replacement is wrong? Do you think race swapping is wrong? Please let me know in the comment section below, and let's get a discussion going. I'm Freaky. Peace out. And please don't forget to check out my other social medias. Please go and check out my alternative video platforms: Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Twitch, and please come and hang out on my Discord server. We can play games, have a movie night or a series night, or you can watch me play a few games. And if you guys have any suggestions of any videos you want me to react to, or any video ideas in general, you can tell me on my Discord. I'm also on Twitter, Gab, Getter, and Paula. I'm on Locals, Tumblr, Minds, and if you guys want to support me, please go and check out my Subscribe Star. It's like Patreon, but better. All these things are in the description box below, so please go and check them out and subscribe to them. I'm Geek Freak. Peace out.